On bullying awareness. Special thanks to Donna Brown, Becky Darling, and Kate Holly of Manteno Community Unit School District 5, Manteno, Illinois, for their considerable contributions to this important presentation. The sources used in creating this presentation are listed on the final two slides and provided in downloadable PDF from the Attachments menu, the paperclip button on the lower right.
Very similar as far as reporting procedures and as far as you taking action. You want to make sure your head coach is aware. If there's bullying happening in the aspect of the sport or the activity that you're involved with, you need to do something. Okay? Rob Stewart is your point of contact. Okay? Your head coach is also someone you want to have involved. When you watch this, pay attention to that not everything, I think they address it in here, but not everything's bullying, okay? All right? It isn't all bullying, but there is real bullying that does happen, and some of it does happen in the activities that we have, you know? And most of the time, it's in those places that you're not necessarily paying attention to as much as you probably need to. Locker rooms, bus trips, before and after practices when you might dismiss the kids and there's a little bit of leeway in there. Those are the, you don't want to leave kids unsupervised in the first place, but those are the, anytime there's a little bit less supervision and a little bit less structure, those are the times when it can happen. Sometimes it's just things where kids are not being nice and they just need to be told to knock it off.
Bullying basics. The focus on youth bullying has intensified over the past several years as incidents of high-profile school violence, such as the Columbine High School shootings in 1999, have been linked to bullying. Increased research has identified consequences of bullying behavior, such as increased depression, substance abuse, aggression, and school truancy. These factors have placed increased pressure on governments and school systems for solutions to more effectively prevent or reduce bullying in schools. On March 10, 2011, at the White House Conference on Bullying Prevention, President Obama stated, "Consider these statistics. A third of middle school and high school students have reported being bullied during the school year. Almost 3 million students have said they were pushed, shoved, tripped, even spit on. It's also more likely to affect kids that are seen as different, whether it's because of the color of their skin, the clothes they wear, the disability they may have, or sexual orientation. And bullying has been shown to lead to absences and poor performance in the classroom. And that alone should give us pause, since no child should be afraid to go to school in this country." The objective of this presentation is to define bullying, identify bullying behaviors, and provide information that can be shared with students and staff as the importance of bullying awareness continues to grow. Many definitions of bullying have been written, but perhaps the most concise was volunteered by English criminologist David Farrington in 1993. Bullying is the repeated oppression, psychological or physical, of a less powerful person by a more powerful person. These common characteristics stand out in all bullying descriptions. There is some type of imbalance of power between the bully and the victim. There is clear intent to cause harm to the victim, and there is repetition. Bullies do not stop unless stopped. There are also different forms of bullying, which include physical bullying, such as striking, pushing, destruction of a victim's property, and more. Verbal bullying, such as saying or writing inappropriate things about the victim and making threats, teasing, or spreading rumors. Emotional bullying includes rejecting, terrorizing, extorting, defaming, humiliating, blackmailing, manipulating friendships, and ostracizing, ranking a personal characteristic such as race, disability, ethnicity, and perceived sexual orientation, or aggressively making victims do something against their will. Cyberbullying. In this age of email, cell phones, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, the cyberbully uses digital technology in an attempt to harm. Sexual bullying, which includes exhibitionism, voyeurism, sexual propositioning, and abuse involving physical contact. There's a fine line between bullying and sexual harassment. Bullying is not prohibited by federal law, while sexual harassment is prohibited by U.S. civil rights law.
According to the Minnesota student survey that we took last year, it's taken by 4 different grade levels, the most common types of bullying that we see at our school is rumor mongering and exclusion. Are the two that occur the most, and they're not that easy to really just notice happening. So those are the types of things that you're up against and trying to, to keep tabs on it is you may not hear about the rumor at all unless the student reports it to you that it's happening. And exclusion is very subtle, but you do want to pay attention.
We must also keep in mind that often accepted practices, such as hazing or initiation rites, committed against new students or new members of a team, are nothing more than bullying by another name. Studies have shown consistent patterns that apply to bullying. Bullying interferes with student learning and the learning environment. It can create a climate of fear and disrespect. It may lead to the perception that the school lacks control or caring. The majority of bullying happens in or near school. Typically, bystanders are present and teachers are absent. Bullying behavior may also be learned at home, with contributing factors including influential role models, parental maltreatment, physical discipline, bullying in the home, and larger family sizes. The prevalence of bullying peaks in middle school and decreases through high school, implying that maturity is a positive force against bullying. But maturity can't negate the fact bullying is the most common form of violence experienced by children. Who is hurt? All parties involved. The perpetrators. Bullies typically suffer from mental health problems, often experiencing insecurity, anxiety, depression, loneliness, unhappiness, and low self-esteem. Bullies also often pose future risks to society, as the act itself is a strong predictor of juvenile delinquency and community violence. The victims. Bullying victims tend to have a lower level of social acceptance than peers, and fewer support systems, resulting in insecurity, anxiety, and caution. A history of being bullied puts victims at high risk of emotional struggles, including depression, isolation, and contemplation of suicide. Academic struggles, including frequent absences and lowered grades, and all too often the carrying out of irrational retaliation. Populations particularly vulnerable to bullying include lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning youth, racial, ethnic, and religious minorities, and students with physical or mental disabilities. The bystanders. There are typically bystanders present when bullying occurs, and studies show they usually remain silent. The guilt associated with keeping quiet can be painful, so even the bystander in a way becomes a victim. Silence or complicity with a bully obviously allows the behavior to continue, and over time bystanders can be at risk of imitating bullies they recognize as role models. It's been shown that when bystanders do object or report, the bullying behavior stops in over half of the cases. The most important influences for objecting or reporting are the promise of anonymity and the expectations of friends, not those of teachers or parents. Tips for students that have proven helpful spell STAMP. Schools may wish to consider providing training to help students develop the strategies they need to employ these tips. Stay away from bullies. Stay away from anyone or any group of kids who don't like you or are mean to others. Try taking a different route to and from school. If you're being bullied on the bus, make sure your driver is aware of the problems and attempt to sit near the front of the bus within view of the driver. Tell someone. Tell someone you trust if you are being bullied, perhaps a trusted teacher, counselor, principal, or your parents. Tell them what happened, what you did, and who bullied you. Also note where it happened and if someone else saw. If you tell someone that doesn't take you seriously enough, tell someone else. Avoid bad situations. Avoid unsupervised areas of school or places where you don't feel safe. Try to stay within the view of a teacher as much as possible and avoid being alone in remote parts of the building and locker rooms. Make friends. Make friends at school and stick together. Join clubs or participate in a band or a sports team. Project confidence. Don't challenge a bully, but respond firmly or say nothing and walk away to the nearest adult. The Center for Children and Families in the Justice System suggests the following steps for staff when witnessing a student being bullied. Stop the bullying immediately. Separate the bully and the victim and reassure the victim. Talk to the bully or bullies separately. Expect denial. Remind all of the school rules, expected behavior, and consequences. Make bystanders and other students aware of the zero tolerance policy. Reassure the victim that recurrence will be prevented. Apprise appropriate school administrators and staff members. Notify the parents of all involved students. Take remedial action and prevent retaliation. Continue to monitor the behavior of the bully and the safety of the victim. It's important to remember, a third of middle school and high school students have reported being bullied during the school year. The reality is, bullying is a significant issue that requires addressing and consistently reminding ourselves. Bullying does not stop unless stopped. If interested in continuing education credit, please take the quiz that is paired with this presentation. Sources used in the creation of Bullying Basics.
And as I said before, it has some similarities to harassment, and that Rob Stewart, is the administrator that you would want to be in contact with. Just as with harassment, a silent response is not okay. You have to do something in addressing it immediately. Oftentimes takes care of it and prevents it from happening again. Note that they mentioned that if two kids have equal power, it's highly unlikely that anybody's being bullied. If one has more power, yeah. If it's a one-time incident, unless it's major, it's not really bullying. It's an incident of teasing. It's an incident of inappropriate behavior. It's a bad choice. It's mean, whatever. We got to get to that point where it's happening over and over again, that type of thing. But it does depend on a lot of factors. If I one time put a massive post on Facebook about somebody, and it gets to, I suppose as many people as it can, that one-time incident could be considered a bullying incident because of the massive impact that it would have. I call you, a faggot in the hallway as we're walking down, and to me, and I would think to anybody here, that would be an incident of inappropriate name calling. It would not be considered, like you are bullying because you one time called a kid faggot, that type of thing. So it's important to do something. If you're ever unsure about any of these types of things, harassment, bullying, call Rob Stewart and ask him. You know, if your head coach can't satisfactorily, you know, make you comfortable with it, reach out and ask. Okay?
Yep.
You guys got a very important role here as coaches and volunteers.